The message came through the usual channels at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time. Commander Vexistar sat in his command chair aboard the mercenary vessel, Bloodfang, when his communication officer announced the incoming transmission. The blue hologram of a well-dressed consortium official flickered to life in the center of the bridge. "Greetings, Commander Vextar of the Catherian Void Hunters," the official began. His voice carried the usual tone of someone who had money and expected results. "I am Director Nalseth of the Theta Sector Mining Consortium. We have a situation that requires your expertise." Vextar leaned forward in his chair. The Catherians were one of the most feared mercenary groups in the Outer Rim. They had fought against the Zephyrian Empire, crushed rebel movements on 12 different worlds, and cleared out pirate nests that regular military forces couldn't handle. Jobs from the mining consortium always paid well. "What kind of situation?" Vextar asked. "Terrorists have taken control of 3 of our asteroid mining colonies," the director explained. "They've killed our security forces and are holding our mining equipment hostage. We need them eliminated quickly and efficiently." Vextar nodded. This sounded like standard work. "What species are we dealing with?" "Humans," the director replied. Several of Vextar's bridge crew exchanged glances. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact about 200 years ago. Most alien species considered them young and inexperienced in warfare. "How many?" Vextar asked. "Intelligence reports suggest 5 individuals per colony. 15 total across all 3 locations." Vextar almost laughed. 15 humans against the combined might of 3 mercenary companies. This would be easier than he thought. "Send us the details," he said. "We'll review the contract terms." The hologram disappeared, and within minutes detailed files appeared on Vextar's personal screen. He began reading through the mission briefing. The 3 colonies were designated Alpha 7, Beta 12, and Gamma 9. Each was a standard asteroid mining operation with basic life support and mining equipment. The human terrorists had apparently coordinated their attacks perfectly. All 3 colonies had been taken within the same 6-hour window. The consortium's security forces had been overwhelmed before they could send proper distress signals. Vextar pulled up the files on the human leaders. The first was Captain Li Dongwu, a former Earth military officer who now led the group at Colony Alpha 7. His record showed standard human military service with nothing particularly impressive. Humans lived such short lives that their military experience was limited compared to other species. The file listed his team members: Park Ji-min, described as a demolitions expert; Kim Hae-won, listed as a sniper; and Yoon So-young, marked as a tactical specialist. Their photos showed typical humans, small, weak-looking creatures with soft skin and no natural weapons. "Sir," his tactical officer spoke up, "I'm receiving communications from 2 other mercenary groups. The Zenthari Deathclaws and the Moravian Shadow Legion have also accepted contracts for this operation." Vextar smiled. 3 of the galaxy's most elite mercenary forces against 15 humans. This was going to be a massacre. He opened a communication channel to the other mercenary leaders. War Prime Sekhmoth of the Deathclaws appeared first, his reptilian features showing the usual Zenthari confidence. Strategist Prime Kelnara of the Shadow Legion joined moments later, her pale blue skin and large black eyes giving her an otherworldly appearance. "Greetings, fellow hunters," Vextar began. "I assume you've both reviewed the contract details." "Indeed," Sekhmoth hissed. "The Deathclaws will handle Colony Beta 12. These humans will learn what it means to face true warriors." "The Shadow Legion claims Colony Gamma 9, Kelnara added in her calm, analytical voice. "Our preliminary assessment suggests this will be concluded within 24 standard hours." "Excellent. The Void Hunters will take Alpha 7, Vextar said. "I suggest we coordinate our attacks for maximum psychological impact on any surviving humans." They spent the next hour discussing tactics and timing. All 3 commanders agreed that overwhelming force would end this quickly. The humans might have surprised the consortium's security forces, but they were about to face professional military units with centuries of combat experience. Vextar ended the call and turned to his crew. "Prepare the ship for combat deployment. I want all 30 warriors ready for ground assault. Full armor, heavy weapons, the works." His weapons officer looked confused. "Sir, isn't that excessive for 5 humans?" "Better to end this quickly than drag it out," Vextar replied. Besides, I want to send a message to any other humans who might be considering similar actions. The Bloodfang changed course toward the asteroid belt where Colony Alpha 7 waited. During the 3-day journey, Vextar studied everything available about human military capabilities. Their technology was decent but not exceptional. Their physical abilities were average at best. They had no natural armor, claws, or enhanced senses like most warrior species. What puzzled him was the warning notation in their file. Extremely dangerous. Approach with caution. This seemed like typical human exaggeration. Every species tried to make themselves sound more threatening than they actually were. On the second day of travel, Vextar called a briefing for his warriors. The 30 Catherians gathered in the main cargo bay, their dark blue skin and muscular builds making them look like the natural predators they were. Each warrior stood over 2 meters tall with enhanced strength and reflexes from generations of genetic modification. Warriors, Vextar began, we face a simple extermination mission. 5 humans have seized a mining colony. They killed some security guards and think they're warriors now. Several of his troops laughed. The Catherians had faced the best fighters in the galaxy. Humans were barely worth their time. Don't underestimate any opponent, Vextar continued, though he didn't really believe his own words. But this should be straightforward. We go in fast, eliminate all targets, secure the facility. Questions? A young warrior named Jaktar raised his hand. Sir, what if they try to surrender? The contract specifies elimination of all terrorist forces. No prisoners. The warriors nodded. This was the kind of work they understood. As they approached Colony Alpha 7, Vextar reviewed the facility's layout one more time. It was a standard asteroid mining operation. Living quarters, processing facilities, storage areas, and a network of mining tunnels. The humans would probably try to hide in the tunnels, but Catherian enhanced senses would track them down easily. Sir, we're receiving a communication from the colony, his communication officer reported. Put it through. A human face appeared on the screen. According to the file, this was Captain Lee Dongwu. He looked calm, almost relaxed as he spoke. This is Captain Lee Dongwu of the Earth Defense Consortium security team. You are approaching a restricted area. Please identify yourselves and state your business. Vextar laughed. I am Commander Vextar of the Catherian Void Hunters. We're here to eliminate the terrorists who have seized this facility. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Captain Lee Dongwu's expression didn't change. You have 10 minutes to withdraw. This is your only warning. The communication cut off. Vextar and his bridge crew stared at the blank screen for a moment before bursting into laughter. Did he just threaten us? The weapons officer asked. Prepare for assault, Vextar ordered. These humans are about to learn why the Catherian Void Hunters are feared across the galaxy. As the Bloodfang moved into attack position, Vextar felt confident this would be over soon. He had no way of knowing that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his military career. 10 minutes passed exactly. Commander Vexistar watched the chronometer on his command screen count down to 0. He had given the humans their chance to surrender, and they had chosen death instead. Deploy assault shuttles, he ordered. Full combat formation. 3 Catherian shuttles launched from the Bloodfang, each carrying 10 warriors in full battle armor. Vextar led the first shuttle himself, eager to end this quickly and claim the bounty. The asteroid colony Alpha 7 grew larger on their screens as they approached. The mining facility looked peaceful from outside. Lights glowed in the habitat domes and the processing equipment appeared to be running normally. There were no obvious defensive positions or weapons emplacements visible. The humans seemed to be hiding inside like scared animals. Shuttle Alpha, begin docking procedures, Vextar commanded. Shuttles Beta and Gamma secure the outer perimeter. The first shuttle connected to the colony's main airlock without any resistance. Vextar expected the humans to at least try to jam the docking clamps or seal the airlocks. Instead, everything worked perfectly. Too perfectly. Sir, this feels like a trap, his second-in-command, Draktar, whispered as they prepared to board. Of course it's a trap, Vextar replied. But what can 5 humans do against 30 Catherian warriors? Even if they have weapons, we have superior armor, training, and numbers. The airlock cycled open. Vextar led his squad into the colony's main corridor. The lights were dimmed to emergency levels, casting long shadows everywhere. Their enhanced vision adapted quickly to the low light conditions. Life signs detected, their scanner operator reported. 5 humans spread throughout the facility. They're not even trying to hide. Vextar smiled inside his helmet. These humans were even more amateur than he thought. Squad Alpha, take the command center. Squad Beta, secure the living quarters. Squad Gamma, check the processing areas. Kill anything that moves. The 3 squads split up and moved deeper into the colony. Vextar followed Squad Alpha toward the command center. The corridors were quiet except for the normal sounds of life support systems and mining equipment. They had traveled maybe 50 meters when the first explosion hit. The blast came from behind them. Back near the airlock, Vextar felt the shock wave through the deck plating and heard his communication officer screaming over the radio. "Shuttle Alpha is gone! The docking port just exploded!" Shuttles Beta and Gamma are moving to assist. Before Vextar could respond, a second explosion rocked the facility. This one was closer, somewhere in the processing section where Squad Gamma had gone. The lights flickered and went out completely, leaving only their helmet displays for illumination. "Squad Gamma, report." Vextar barked into his communicator. Static answered him. "Squad Beta, what's your status?" "Sir, we've lost contact with Gamma. The explosion seems to have damaged the main power grid. We're proceeding to the living quarters as ordered." Vextar felt the first cold touch of doubt. Professional military forces didn't conduct operations this way. These weren't panicked terrorists making desperate moves. This felt coordinated, planned. "All squads, proceed with extreme caution. These humans may have more explosives planted throughout the facility." Squad Alpha reached the command center door. Vextar's scanner showed 2 human life signs inside. Finally, they would have targets to shoot at. They breached the door with standard tactics, throwing flash grenades and following up with overwhelming firepower. The room filled with smoke and weapons fire. When the shooting stopped, they found nothing but empty chairs and computer terminals. "Sir, the life signs are gone," the scanner operator reported. "They were here 30 seconds ago. Check for escape routes. Ventilation shafts, maintenance tunnels, anything." They searched the room thoroughly but found no obvious exits other than the door they had entered through. The humans had somehow vanished. Vextar's communicator crackled to life. It was a human voice, calm and professional. "Commander Vextar, this is Captain Lee Dongwu. I tried to warn you. Now it's too late to leave safely. Where are you, human? Face me like a warrior. Look around you, Commander. You're not fighting warriors. You're fighting miners who know every bolt and wire in this facility, every tunnel, every system, every weak point." As if to emphasize his words, another explosion echoed through the colony. This one was smaller but precisely placed. The lights came back on briefly, then went out again. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. "Squad Beta, report." Vextar demanded. "Sir, we're trapped. The corridor behind us collapsed when the last blast hit. We're cut off from the main route." Vextar's tactical display showed his forces scattered throughout the facility. Squad Beta was isolated in the living quarters. Squad Gamma hadn't been heard from since the first explosion. His own Squad Alpha was stuck in the command center with no clear path back to the shuttles. "Sir," one of his warriors spoke up, "I'm detecting movement in the mining tunnels below us. Multiple contacts." Vextar looked at his scanner. The facility extended deep into the asteroid through a network of mining tunnels. The human life signs were moving through these tunnels like they were highways. "They're using the mining network to move around us," he realized. "We can't track them effectively down there." The human captain's voice came through the speakers again. "You made 2 mistakes, Commander. First, you assumed we were hiding from you. Second, you assumed this was our first fight." A new sound reached them, the high-pitched whine of energy weapons charging. But these weren't standard military weapons. They sounded different, improvised. "Mining lasers," Draktar whispered. "They're using mining equipment as weapons." The first laser blast melted through the wall beside them. The beam was crude but powerful enough to cut through their armor if it hit directly. More beams followed, coming from different angles as the humans moved through their tunnel network. "Squad Alpha, return fire. Suppress those positions." His warriors opened fire in the direction of the laser blasts, but they were shooting at walls and shadows. The humans would fire a few shots from one position, then disappear before return fire could reach them. "Squad Beta, what's your status?" Vextar called. "Sir, we're under attack by at least 2 hostiles. They're using some kind of gas weapon. 3 of our warriors are down." "Gas? What kind of gas?" "Unknown, sir. It seems to be affecting our breathing systems. Wait. Sir, I think they're using the atmospheric processing system against us." Vextar checked his suit's environmental readings. The air composition in the facility was changing. Somehow, the humans were manipulating the life support systems to create toxic atmospheric conditions in specific areas. Another explosion, this one very close. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their exit from the command center. Squad Alpha was now trapped just like Squad Beta. "Commander," one of his warriors said quietly, "maybe we should request assistance from the other mercenary groups." Vextar's pride recoiled at the suggestion. The Cytherian Void Hunters didn't ask for help from anyone, but as another mining laser blast barely missed his head, he began to reconsider. "Sir, incoming message from Shuttle Beta," his communicator crackled. "Put it through." "Commander, this is Pilot Reltar. Shuttle Gamma was just destroyed by some kind of improvised explosive device. The humans somehow got a bomb onto our ship while we were docked. 5 more warriors lost." Vexitar did quick calculations in his head. They had started with 30 warriors. Squad Gamma was gone, 10 dead. Shuttle Gamma's crew was lost, 5 more dead. Squad Beta reported 3 down and was cut off. Squad Alpha was trapped with him in the command center. In less than 2 hours, the humans had killed or incapacitated half his force. "All units, begin immediate withdrawal," he ordered. "Fighting retreat to Shuttle Beta, we're leaving." "Sir," Draktar protested. The contract assumed we were fighting normal terrorists, not professional military engineers who've turned an entire asteroid into a weapon." Captain Lee Dongwu's voice came through the speakers one last time. "Commander Vextar, you're welcome to try again any time. But next time, bring more ships." It took them 4 hours to fight their way back to Shuttle Beta. They lost 3 more warriors in the process. The humans never faced them directly, instead using the facility's own systems as weapons. Mining charges became improvised explosives. Industrial lasers became sniper rifles. The atmospheric processing system became a chemical weapons delivery method. By the time they reached their shuttle, Vextar had only 12 warriors left out of 30. The humans had achieved better than 2.1 kill ratios while being outnumbered 6.1. As Shuttle Beta pulled away from Colony Alpha 7, Vextar composed his after-action report with shaking hands. He had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. He had faced trained military forces, desperate rebels, and savage pirates. But he had never encountered anything like these 5 humans. The Cytherian Void Hunters, one of the most feared mercenary groups in the Outer Rim, had been defeated by mining colony security guards. War Prime Sekmoth received Commander Vextar's emergency transmission, while the Death Claws were still in hyperspace. 2 days out from Colony Beta 12, the message was brief and disturbing. "Mission failure at Alpha 7, 18 casualties. Humans more dangerous than anticipated. Recommend abort." Sekmoth read the message twice before deleting it. The Zenthari Death Claws had a reputation to maintain. They were not going to be scared off by Cytherian incompetence. "Navigation, increase speed to maximum," he ordered. "I want to reach Beta 12 in 36 hours instead of 48. His tactical officer, Drakmoth, looked concerned. "War Prime, perhaps we should study the Cytherian failure more carefully before we attack." "The Cytherians failed because they underestimated their opponents," Sekmoth replied with confidence. "We will not make the same mistake." The Death Claws were different from other mercenary groups. Where the Cytherians relied on brute force and the Moravians used analytical tactics, the Zenthari specialized in stealth and psychological warfare. They had evolved as ambush predators on their homeworld, and they brought those instincts to their military operations. Sekmoth had studied the human files more carefully than Vextar had. The team at Colony Beta 12 was led by Sergeant Choi Min-ho, with team members Han Yu-jin, Lim Da-yoon, and Kang Tae-young. According to their records, they were also mining security specialists. Not professional soldiers, but the Cytherian disaster suggested these humans were more capable than their files indicated. "Prepare the stealth equipment," Sekmoth ordered. "Full-spectrum camouflage, psionic dampeners, the works. We're going to approach this differently." The Death Claws ship, Silent Fang, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid belt. Unlike the Cytherians, they didn't announce their arrival with obvious military formations. Instead, they drifted in on minimum power, using passive sensors to study Colony Beta 12. The facility looked identical to the other mining colonies, standard prefabricated structures connected to an asteroid rich in rare metals. The humans had been operating it for several months, giving them time to learn the layout and modify the systems. Life signs confirmed 4 human targets inside the facility. the sensor operator reported. No obvious defensive positions or weapons. Scan for explosives or other traps, Sekhmoth ordered. Negative, War Prime. Standard mining charges in their normal storage locations. No unusual energy signatures. Sekhmoth nodded. The humans probably hadn't had time to set up the elaborate trap system that had defeated the Catherians. Beta 12 would be different. Deploy stealth teams. Team Alpha approaches from the main docking port. Team Beta uses the auxiliary airlock. Team Gamma goes through the mining shaft entrances. Full stealth mode. No communication unless absolutely necessary. 20 Xanthari warriors prepared their equipment. Their stealth technology was some of the best in the galaxy. Adaptive camouflage that bent light around them, sound dampeners that eliminated footsteps, and psionic barriers that blocked their mental signatures from detection. Each warrior carried specialized weapons designed for silent killing. Vibroblades that could cut through armor without making noise, neural disruptors that stopped brain function instantly, and acid projectiles that dissolved targets completely. Sekhmoth led Team Alpha toward the main docking port. As they approached, he noticed something odd. The airlock was already open and pressurized as if the humans were inviting them inside. Too obvious, he thought. They want us to use this entrance. He directed his team to one of the cargo airlocks instead. Let the humans wait for them at the main entrance while the death claws struck from an unexpected direction. The cargo airlocks cycled them through without incident. Team Alpha found themselves in a large storage bay filled with mining equipment and raw ore containers, perfect for a stealth approach. Sekhmoth activated his team's communication system. It used quantum encryption and direct neural links that were impossible to intercept or jam. Teams Beta and Gamma, report status. Beta in position at auxiliary airlock. No signs of detection. Gamma entering through mining shaft 7. All clear so far. Proceed with infiltration. Silent kills only until all targets are neutralized. Team Alpha moved through the storage bay like ghosts. Their adaptive camouflage made them nearly invisible, and their sound dampeners eliminated any noise from their movement. They had performed similar operations hundreds of times on dozens of different worlds. They reached the door to the main facility and carefully scanned the area beyond. The corridor was empty and dimly lit. Sekhmoth could smell human scents in the air, fear, sweat, and something else, something that reminded him of his homeworld's battlefields. Team Alpha advancing to Corridor C7, he reported silently. Team Beta in position at life support. Section. Team Gamma approaching human. Quarters. Everything was proceeding perfectly. In another few minutes, the death claws would have all 4 humans surrounded and cut off from escape routes. That's when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. But in that brief moment of complete darkness, Sekhmoth heard something that made his blood run cold. Human laughter. Teams Beta and Gamma, report status immediately. Silence. His quantum-encrypted communication system had been cut off from the other teams. That should have been impossible. War Prime, one of his warriors, whispered. I'm detecting interference in our stealth systems. Something is scanning us with frequencies I don't recognize. Sekhmoth checked his own equipment. The adaptive camouflage was flickering, struggling to maintain its light-bending field. The sound dampeners were producing static instead of silence. A human voice came through the facility's speaker system. It was calm and professional, with no trace of fear. This is Sergeant Choi Minho. You picked the wrong colony to attack, but I appreciate the challenge. It's been too quiet around here. How can he detect us? One of Sekhmoth's warriors asked. Before anyone could answer, the ceiling exploded above them. It wasn't a bomb or explosive device. Instead, a massive piece of mining equipment came crashing down through the ceiling panels. A human figure rode it down, using some kind of gravity manipulator to control the descent. The human landed in the middle of Team Alpha and immediately opened fire with a modified mining laser. The weapon had been rebuilt to fire rapid pulses instead of continuous beams, turning it into an assault rifle that could melt through Xanthari armor. 2 of Sekhmoth's warriors died before they could react. The others scattered for cover, but there wasn't much available in the corridor. Team Alpha under attack. Teams Beta and Gamma respond. Still nothing from his other teams. The human who had dropped through the ceiling was moving with impossible speed and precision. He seemed to know exactly where each Xanthari warrior was hiding, even though their stealth systems should have made them invisible. Han Yu Jin, the human called out. Northwest corner behind the ore container. A second human voice responded from somewhere else in the facility. Confirmed. Adjusting atmospheric mixture for that section. Sekhmoth watched in horror as his warriors in the northwest corner began struggling to breathe. Somehow the humans had isolated that part of the facility and were feeding poison gas directly to that location. How are they tracking us? He demanded. Sergeant Choi Min-ho paused in his attack and actually answered the question. Thermal imaging, motion sensors, air displacement analysis, and electromagnetic field detection. Your stealth tech is impressive, but it doesn't make you invisible to industrial sensors. Sekhmoth realized with growing dread that the humans had turned the entire mining facility into a surveillance system. Every piece of equipment was feeding them information about intruder locations and movements. Lim Da-un, Sergeant Choi called out again. I need a distraction in Section B4. The lights in that section began flashing in a complex pattern. Sekhmoth recognized it as a Zenthari military code, the signal for retreat immediately. How did these humans know Zenthari military communications? His remaining warriors, confused by the flashing lights, began moving toward what they thought was a rally point. Instead, they walked directly into a trap. Industrial manipulator arms, normally used for moving heavy mining equipment, grabbed two warriors and crushed them before they could escape. War Prime. His last warrior whispered over their local communicator. We need to retreat. They know everything about us. Kang Tae-young, the human sergeant, called out. Seal the exits. Don't let any of them get back to their ship. Blast doors slammed shut throughout the facility. The death claws were trapped inside with the humans. But Sergeant Choi Min-ho wasn't done talking. War Prime Sekhmoth, he said, somehow knowing the Zenthari commander's name and rank. Your psychological profile indicates you respond poorly to personal challenges. Let me give you one. The speaker system crackled, and suddenly Sekhmoth could hear his other team screaming. Team Beta was dying slowly from what sounded like acid burns. Team Gamma was trapped somewhere with rising water levels, drowning one by one. The humans weren't just killing his warriors, they were making them suffer deliberately. Your military doctrine emphasizes fear as a weapon, Sergeant Choi continued. But you've never faced an opponent who studied your culture, your religion, your family structures, and your personal psychological weaknesses. Strategist Prime Kelnara had spent 3 weeks analyzing the failures at colonies Alpha 7 and Beta 12. The reports from both mercenary groups painted a disturbing picture. But Kelnara believed she had identified the critical mistakes that led to those defeats. The problem is clear, she announced to her assembled officers. Aboard the Moravian flagship Calculated Strike. Both previous attacks relied on small forces and specialized tactics. The Catherians used brute force, the Zenthari used stealth. Both played to their strengths instead of exploiting human weaknesses. Her tactical staff nodded in agreement. The Moravian Shadow Legion was famous throughout the galaxy for their analytical approach to warfare. They studied every variable, calculated every possibility, and planned for every contingency. What are the human weaknesses, Strategist Prime? Asked her second-in-command, sub-strategist Velkara Kelnara, activated the holographic display showing detailed analysis of both previous battles. Physical inferiority is obvious. Humans are smaller, weaker, and slower than most galactic species. They compensate with environmental advantages and psychological manipulation. She highlighted specific sections of the battle reports. At Alpha 7, they used the mining facility's own systems as weapons. At Beta 12, they relied on surveillance networks and atmospheric control. Strip away these advantages and you have weak mammals with limited combat capability. So we force them into open combat, Velkara said. Exactly. We bring overwhelming numbers to Colony Gamma 9. 200 warriors against 5 humans in direct assault. No stealth, no small unit tactics. Just superior firepower and alien physiology. Kelnara pulled up the personnel files for the human team at Gamma 9. Lieutenant Colonel Park Soo-jin led the group, supported by Nam Ho-young, Bae Mi-young, Song Woo-bin, and Lee Soo-ah. Like the other teams, they were listed as mining security specialists. Note the command structure, Kelnara pointed out. A lieutenant colonel leading mining security? This suggests these humans have more military background than their files indicate. But even trained soldiers cannot overcome a 40.1 numerical disadvantage in open warfare. The Shadow Legion began their approach to Colony Gamma 9 with unprecedented force. 10 assault ships carrying 20 warriors each, supported by heavy weapons platforms and orbital bombardment capabilities. They weren't taking any chances. Sir, the sensor operator reported as they approached the asteroid belt. I'm detecting unusual readings from the target colony. What kind of readings? The facility appears to be completely powered down. No life support, no communications, no energy signatures at all. Kelnara frowned. This wasn't what she expected. Scan for life signs. Negative. No biological readings detected. They've evacuated, Velkara said. The humans fled when they learned we were coming. But Kelnara wasn't convinced. The previous human teams had shown no inclination to retreat. Deploy reconnaissance drones. Full spectrum analysis of the facility. The drones revealed that Colony Gamma 9 was indeed empty of human life. The mining equipment had been shut down. The atmospheric systems were offline, and the living quarters showed no signs of recent occupation. This could be a trap, Kelnara said. The humans might be hiding in the asteroid's mining tunnels. Or they might have simply run away when they realized they were facing the entire Shadow Legion, Velkara countered. 200 warriors is significantly different from 30 or 20. Kelnara considered this. The humans had shown tactical intelligence in their previous encounters. Perhaps they were smart enough to recognize a hopeless situation. Deploy the landing force. Full combat formation, but maintain caution. If the humans are gone, we secure the facility and report mission success. If they're hiding, we root them out systematically. The Moravian assault was a textbook example of overwhelming force application. 10 shuttles approached from different vectors, each carrying a full squad of warriors in heavy combat armor. They established a perimeter around the facility before beginning their methodical advance. Kelnara led the first team into the main habitat dome. The facility was dark and quiet, with only emergency lighting providing minimal illumination. Their scanners showed no signs of human presence. Teams 2 through 5 secure the processing areas. Teams 6 through 10 search the mining tunnel networks. Maintain communication at all times. The search proceeded smoothly for the first hour. The Moravians found evidence that humans had been living in the facility recently, but no signs of current occupation. It looked like a standard evacuation, personal belongings left behind, but all important equipment and documents removed. Then they found the message. It was displayed on the main communication screen in the facility's command center. A recorded video message from Lieutenant Colonel Park Soo-jin, time-stamped just 6 hours earlier. By now you've probably figured out that we're not here, the human officer said calmly. You want to see what humans do in open warfare? You should have studied our history better. The message continued. The facility has been evacuated except for our team. What you're about to experience is something we call asymmetric warfare. We've had 3 weeks to prepare while you were analyzing our previous encounters. Kelnara felt a chill run down her spine. All teams begin immediate withdrawal to the shuttles. This is a trap. But as her warriors tried to retreat, they discovered that all the airlocks had been sealed from the outside. They were trapped inside the facility with no way to return to their ships. Teams 6 through 10 report status from the mining tunnels. Strategist Prime, the tunnel entrances have been collapsed. We're cut off down here. Teams 2 through 5, what's your position? Processing areas are secure, but we can't reach the airlocks. Some kind of energy field is blocking our path. Kelnara realized with growing horror that the humans had turned the entire facility into a massive trap. But where were they? How could 5 humans coordinate such a complex operation? Her question was answered when the lights came back on. The humans weren't hiding in the facility. They were outside, in the vacuum of space, wearing mining suits and using the asteroid's surface as their battlefield. They had spent 3 weeks preparing positions among the rocky outcroppings and mining equipment scattered across the asteroid's surface. Attention Moravian forces. Lieutenant Colonel Park's voice came through their communication system. Welcome to Colony Gamma 9, Population 5. Defenders, also 5. Invaders, 200. Let's see how those numbers work out for you. The first attack came from Nam Ho-young, who had positioned himself in an abandoned mining crawler on the asteroid's surface. He began systematically destroying the Moravian shuttles with precise shots from a modified mining laser. Shuttles 3, 7, and 9 are destroyed, Kelnara's pilot reported. The remaining shuttles are taking heavy fire. Inside the facility, Bae Mi-young and Song Woo-bin had taken control of the life support systems. They began playing games with atmospheric pressure and temperature, making some sections unbearably hot while freezing others. Teams 4 and 8 report environmental hazards in their sectors. Velkara announced. Extreme temperature variations and atmospheric pressure changes. But it was Lee Sua who proved most devastating to Moravian morale. She had hacked into their communication networks and was broadcasting false orders, creating confusion and panic among the scattered teams. Team 6, this is command. Retreat to position Alpha immediately. Team 3, enemy forces detected in your sector. Fall back to defensive positions. All teams, prepare for orbital bombardment of your current positions. The Moravian warriors, trained to follow orders without question, began responding to contradictory commands from multiple sources. Units moved into ambush positions set up by other units. Warriors abandoned secure positions based on false retreat orders. Kelnara watched her carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos. All teams ignore communication orders unless they come from my direct frequency. But Lee Sua anticipated this and began broadcasting on Kelnara's frequency as well, perfectly mimicking the Strategist Prime's voice patterns and speech rhythms. This is Strategist Prime Kelnara. All teams converge on the central processing facility for final assault. Half of Kelnara's forces began moving toward what they thought was a rally point. Instead, they walked into a killing field that Nam Ho Young had prepared using industrial equipment as improvised weapons. Sir, we're losing multiple teams to friendly fire and environmental hazards, Velkara reported. The humans are using our own tactics against us. Lieutenant Colonel Park's voice came through the speakers again. The thing about overwhelming force, Strategist Prime, is that it only works if you can bring it to bear effectively. When you can't tell friend from foe, numbers become a liability. Kelnara realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. 5 humans were defeating 200 of the galaxy's most professional warriors, not through superior technology or physical capability, but through pure tactical brilliance. They had studied Moravian military doctrine and turned it against itself. The Shadow Legion's emphasis on communication and coordination became vulnerabilities when the humans controlled the information flow. Their superior numbers became a weakness when confusion caused them to fight each other. Teams still responding. This is Strategist Prime on emergency frequency Omega 7. The Galactic Mercenary Guild's annual conclave was usually a celebration of successful contracts and profitable wars. This year, the atmosphere in the Great Assembly Hall was different. 3 of the galaxy's most elite mercenary groups had suffered devastating defeats, and word had spread throughout the entire military community. Guildmaster Torvek stood at the central podium, his 4 arms gesturing to the assembled representatives from hundreds of mercenary organizations. The massive hall buzzed with nervous conversation as commanders discussed the impossible reports from the Theta sector. Fellow warriors, Torvek began, his voice carrying across the hall through advanced amplification systems. We are here today to address recent events that have shaken the foundations of our profession. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew what he was talking about. 3 of our most respected organizations, the Catherian Void Hunters, the Zenthari Deathclaws, and the Moravian Shadow Legion, have suffered unprecedented casualties during operations against human targets. A murmur ran through the crowd. Many of the smaller mercenary groups had assumed the reports were exaggerated or fabricated. Commander Vextar of the Void Hunters will present his report first. Vextar approached the podium slowly, his blue skin showing signs of recent medical treatment. Half of his face was covered with synthetic skin grafts from injuries sustained during the retreat from Colony Alpha 7. Fellow mercenaries, he began, his voice hoarse, I stand before you as a commander who has faced warriors from across the galaxy. I have fought against the Andromedan Guard, survived the siege of Kepler Station, and led successful campaigns on 43 different worlds. The hall remained quiet. Vextar's reputation was well known. The humans defeated my force through tactics we had never encountered. They turned an entire mining facility into a weapon. Every system, every piece of equipment, every corridor became part of their battle plan. We were not fighting 5 individuals, we were fighting an intelligent facility that wanted us dead. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. 18 of my finest warriors died on that asteroid. Not in glorious combat, but picked off one by opponents who were always invisible, always one step ahead. Vextar stepped down, and War Prime Sekmoth took his place. The Zenthari commander moved carefully, his usual predatory grace replaced by the stiff movements of someone who had seen too much. The Deathclaws specialize in psychological warfare. Sekhmoth said. We study our opponents' minds, exploit their fears, break their will to fight. The humans at Colony Beta 12 did the same thing to us, but better. He activated a holographic display showing brain scan readouts. These are psychological evaluation results from my surviving warriors. Every one of them shows symptoms of severe combat trauma, not from physical injuries, but from having their minds systematically dissected and exploited by human psychological operations. The crowd stirred uneasily. The Zenthari were known for their mental toughness. The humans knew things about our culture, our personal histories, our individual psychological profiles that should have been impossible to obtain. They used this knowledge to wage warfare against our minds as well as our bodies. Sekhmoth looked directly at several guild representatives. They are not just skilled fighters. They are information warfare specialists who can turn your own thoughts against you. Finally, Strategist Prime Kelnara approached the podium. The Moravian officer looked older than her years, her pale blue skin showing stress lines that hadn't been there before Colony Gamma 9. The Shadow Legion brought 200 warriors against 5 humans, she said simply. 30 survived. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. A 85% casualty rate was unheard of in modern mercenary operations. We assumed superior numbers would guarantee victory. Instead, the humans turned our strength into weakness. They used our communication systems against us, our coordination protocols against us, our tactical doctrine against us. She brought up tactical displays showing the battle's progression. 5 humans defeated 200 professional warriors not through superior technology or physical capabilities, but through an understanding of warfare that goes beyond anything in our military academies. Kelnara stepped back from the podium. I have no recommendations for future operations against human targets because I cannot imagine any scenario where such operations would succeed. Guildmaster Torvek returned to the podium. As the 3 commanders took their seats, the hall was filled with uncomfortable silence. Based on these reports and additional intelligence gathered by guild analysts, the High Council has reached several conclusions, he announced. First, human military capabilities have been severely underestimated by the galactic community. He activated a large display showing comparative analysis charts. Second, the individuals involved in these incidents were not professional soldiers, but mining security personnel with basic military training. Another wave of shocked murmurs ran through the crowd. Third, if these represent the capabilities of human civilian contractors, their actual military forces must be considered a threat to galactic stability. The main doors of the assembly hall opened, and a human figure entered. The mercenaries fell completely, silent as Admiral Jung Kyung-soo of the Earth Defense Consortium walked calmly to a prepared speaking area. The Admiral was an older human with graying hair and a relaxed demeanor that somehow made him more intimidating than any alien warlord. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations, but every mercenary in the hall could sense the authority he carried. Thank you for inviting me to speak, Admiral Jung said in perfect galactic standard. I wanted to address some misconceptions about recent events. He looked out at the assembled mercenaries with calm eyes. The individuals who defended colonies Alpha 7, Beta 12, and Gamma 9 were indeed mining security personnel. They were civilians with basic military training, equipped with standard industrial equipment. The hall remained deathly quiet. They were not special forces operatives. They were not equipped with advanced military technology. They were ordinary humans doing their jobs. Admiral Jung activated his own display, showing organizational charts of human military structure. Earth Defense Consortium security teams represent approximately 0.3% of human military capability. They are equivalent to what you might call mall security guards in your own societies. Several mercenary commanders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Are actual military units, the ones trained for warfare rather than colony protection, have not been deployed in any galactic conflicts. We prefer to handle disputes through diplomatic channels. The Admiral paused, letting this information sink in. However, recent events suggest that some individuals may be confused about humanity's position in galactic politics. Let me clarify. We are not seeking conflict with any species or organization, but we are prepared to defend our interests if necessary. Guildmaster Torvek stepped forward. Admiral Jung, what would you recommend regarding future mercenary operations in human space? I would recommend treating human territories the same way you treat any other sovereign space, Admiral Young replied diplomatically. With respect for local laws and customs, he smiled slightly. Of course, if someone insists on testing our defensive capabilities, they're welcome to do so. But as you've seen, our civilian contractors take their jobs quite seriously. The Admiral left the hall as quietly as he had entered. After several minutes of stunned silence, Guildmaster Torvek called for a formal vote. All in favor of classifying human battle squads as Omega-level threats? Every hand in the hall went up. Motion passed unanimously. Human military forces are hereby classified at the same threat level as ancient war machines and extinction event weapons. A new regulation was added to the Guild Charter that day. No contracts shall be accepted against human battle squads without unanimous approval from the High Council, and a minimum hazard pay multiplication of 50 times standard rates. 6 months later, Major Lee Dongwu stood in a briefing room on Earth, addressing a new group of mining security contractors preparing for deployment to frontier colonies. The room was filled with ordinary humans, former miners, ex-military personnel, engineering specialists, and other civilians looking for steady work in the outer systems. The job is pretty straightforward, Major Lee explained. You'll be responsible for protecting mining operations from pirates, claim jumpers, and other threats. Standard security work. A young contractor raised her hand. Sir, we've heard stories about some kind of incident with alien mercenaries. Is there anything special we should know? Major Lee glanced at the wall display showing news clippings about the mercenary incidents. Headlines read, Human security teams defeat elite alien forces and galactic mercenaries refuse human contracts. Just do your jobs professionally, he said. Use your training, work as a team, and remember that you're representing Earth out there. If someone decides to test you, he gestured toward the news clippings. Well, the galaxy learns fast. As the briefing ended and the contractors filed out, Major Lee reflected on how quickly things had changed. Humanity had never intended to become a feared military power in galactic politics. They had simply responded to threats the only way they knew how, with competence, teamwork, and an absolute refusal to give up.